And we're joined now by State Senator Cassie Chambers Armstrong, a Democrat from Louisville, and State Representative Jason Nemes, a Republican from Middletown. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time and being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
So, budget year. We're trying to cover this all in 25 minutes, but just the highlights, right? It is always a little bit extra means a little bit more when you have the 60-day session because you're trying to figure out where these tax dollars go. What do you believe, and Senator Chambers Armstrong, we'll start with you, the biggest win was for your party this session? Because you guys are operating in the minority. Bipartisanship is extremely important. Where do you see areas of strength that you guys delivered?
Sure. So even though we are a minority caucus, I thought we had some great wins this session. One I was really proud of was Imagination Library funding. Imagination Library is one of the most important early education programs that we have. It makes sure that children in Kentucky can get books to read at home with a caregiver. It's a really great bipartisan program. And so I was really grateful that we were able to secure full funding, including the historical match in the budget, as well as the language from my legislation to make sure that we're doing extra outreach to make sure those low-income kids, those foster kids, benefit from that. I was also really proud of my colleague, Senator Keturah Herron's bill. She delivered a really important housing policy to make it easier to redevelop brownfields. And in a year where housing legislation was so important and a lot of it didn't make it across the finish line, I thought that was a really great win for a Democrat to be able to move that forward for our city.
With local impact, which is always the goal.
That's right.
Yeah, and I believe it was her first bill passed, right? She's been in the Senate a couple years.
I know it was her first bill passed out of the Senate all the way through the process.
Yep.
And just to really drive it home, what she did was help refine the process so that whenever we have these brownfields, these areas that have been impacted by pollution, and you have folks that want to put those back into use, do environmental remediation, turn those into housing, turn those into businesses, make them a useful part of our community, she helped refine the process to make it so that we can do that. And there are specific sites here in Louisville that she had in mind whenever she was working on that legislation. It's going to make a real difference for the communities that some of those sites are in.
Representative Nemes, biggest wins.
Well, I think the two that Cassie had mentioned were good wins. Senator Herron had a nice bill in the housing area. We also had another housing bill that passed about churches being able to have an expedited process if they are in commercial areas. That was a good thing. I assume we'll come back to housing in a little bit. And the Imagination Library was something that Cassie worked on, and I was very happy that we could continue the funding and also improve the program at the same time. Because what we're doing now is we're going to be focusing on getting those books to foster kids first and then lower income. And so the program continues. It's fully funded, and I feel good about that. With respect to the question, what's my party's biggest win? I don't know that I look at it in terms of that. I would say Kentucky's biggest win is a continuation, if I could say it that way. And that is for now 10 years, 5 budget sessions, we have had budgeting that is responsible and conservative. We're doing a lot of things at the same time. We are making sure that we don't overspend, that we're saving an appropriate amount of money so that we can get our bond ratings down, which has a real impact, not just so we can say the bond ratings are down, but that we can build things cheaper. All at the same time paying off things that were not funded for far too long, such as our pensions. It's not expected that we'll pay those off fully until 2049, but we're making a lot of inroads into paying things off like pensions. All the while funding education at higher levels than they've ever been funded, outstripping inflation when you look at benefits for teachers as well, which have to be included, obviously, because benefits are part of the pay package. So we're doing all these kinds of things. We are also, I'm very proud to note, this is something the governor touts all the time, and we join him in that. And the legislature has funded substance abuse treatment more per capita than any other state. And that's having a direct impact. If you look at the 20 counties across the country with the biggest reduction in opioid in overdoses, 14 of those 20 counties are in Kentucky. So we're trying to fund our needs while at the same time being reasonable and being responsible and releasing some of the pressure off of Kentucky taxpayers. For example, I know we didn't reduce taxes this session, but since we've taken over in 2017, if you make $50,000 a year, that is the difference in what we've done at 6% to 3.5% at $1,500 in your pocket per year after taxes. So we're doing all those things together, and I think that's the biggest win for Kentucky is that we're continuing that trajectory.
And I know Republican lawmakers have really stressed the sort of the business-friendly environment as being a big reason why you guys focus on that so heavily as it relates to the income tax.
That's
I did want to talk about the budget, right? We talked about sort of the leanness of it. So that was the scuttlebutt, right? This was going to be a lean budget, economic uncertainty. I looked at the numbers of 2024, and they were fairly comparable. The executive branch budget, the 2-year spending plan, was, I believe, $30 million last time, $32 this time. One-time spending, I believe, was $2.7 billion last time, $1.7 billion this time.
That's right.
I mean, was this really, and Representative News, we'll start with you, was this really like a session of restraint when it comes to this budget? Is that how you view it? Or?
I think that's a good way to put it. It's a lot. You said it, uncertainty. We're hitting our numbers. We're still going to have a surplus, but it's uncertainty. It's a lot of things that are happening at the federal level and at the international level. We want to make sure that we have the money to handle our business. A lot of our sister states are having contractions in their budgets. We're not yet, but we understand that is something that is possible for us in the near future. So we want to be very responsible. We're putting money into what we call the rainy day fund, the contingency fund, and to ensure that we have the dollars necessary there. And so we are not overfunded. We have to have a balanced budget. We can't print money like they do in D.C. And so I would say this is a conservative, cautious budget, but I think it satisfies our needs.
Senator, for Democrats, it appeared to me that two of the biggest concerns with the budget, not just going in, but even as it was passing in both chambers, was Medicaid and then higher education funding. It looks like, at least on the higher ed part, some of those were I guess, settled some of those concerns. Can you expand upon that first? We'll go into Medicaid after.
Yeah, so we restored some of the cuts to our higher education institutions in the veto override period. But I want to circle back to what Representative Nemes said about uncertainty, particular federal uncertainty, because in my view, this is one thing that we sort of overlook this session. The uncertainty that's being caused is by what's happening in Washington, D.C. And I worry that these federal laws we're passing are going to be devastating to Kentucky, particularly devastating to our healthcare industry into the future. I hope I'm wrong, but I have that concern. And so when we talk about uncertainty, we are operating in a landscape where we just don't know what the impact of, call it the big beautiful bill, call it whatever you want to, is going to do to the healthcare landscape in our state in the future. And so it is true that we have to operate with that in mind, and I'm not sure that we are adequately taking steps to plan for what the impact of that legislation could be. Also, what worries me about our continued tax policy and tax cuts, people like tax cuts. Everyone, when you say, would you like a tax cut? Most people say yes. But what most people don't realize is at this point, when we continue to cut taxes, the way we're doing it, the majority of the benefit is going to people who need that benefit the least. The more money you make, the more money you're saving. The less money you make, the less money you're saving. And as we give away the money through these tax cuts to people who maybe don't need the tax cut as badly, it's impacting our ability to invest in services and resources and relief for the people that need it the most. And so just by way of example, I filed a bill every single year that I've been in the legislature to eliminate the sales tax on diapers. It hasn't gone anywhere. It has a fiscal note of about $6 million. That's a drop in the bucket. Can't really get a lot of traction or momentum, even though that tax cut, eliminating the sales tax on diapers, would save more money for a low-income family with 2 kids and diapers than a tax cut would, an income tax cut. And so I worry when we talk about tax policy, we have to talk about who we're giving relief to and what the price of that relief is.
And I support her effort on the tax cut there for diapers. I also support it, what we call the pink tax for feminine products. But what we're doing here is it's a long-term play. And the thought is, by the way, we have more revenues now than we did when we began to cut taxes. So the play is working. And the play is to grow over time. It's a conservative approach to a conservative goal. It's to grow over time. We are a poor state. We're not going to tax our way into prosperity. We have to grow. And so that's what we're trying to do here. So it helps the guy that has a lot of money, and it helps the guy who doesn't have a lot of money. If you work, you're going to get a tax break. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish. In our sales taxes at 6%, which is where I hope it stays. We don't tax groceries. We don't tax pharmaceuticals. Many states do. We don't. That's not in the conversation to do that. So we're trying a long-term approach, and it's working.
I want to touch on Medicaid. You guys had discussed it in length going into this session, sort of what we do with Medicaid, given what we've seen on a federal level with that big, beautiful bill that Senator Armstrong mentioned. I'll leave it open-ended. How did we approach Medicaid? And I'll start with you, Senator.
I'm worried about what we did with Medicaid in this budget. And so I think everyone would acknowledge, I think Republicans would acknowledge, that Medicaid is likely to be underfunded in the second year of the budget. There is probably not enough money there for it. And so they put money in what they call a lockbox. So we set aside money and we said, here's money for Medicaid if we need it. I think
what was it, like $275 million, something like that?
I think it was $350.
Just
$350.
Yeah, okay.
And it's not clear to me exactly what it's going to take to unlock this money, or that the General Assembly, if the governor comes back and says, hey, by the way, we need this money, Medicaid is in crisis, we need this money, that we're going to be willing to unlock it. And that's scary to me. When we're talking about Medicaid, we're talking about life or death decisions that have to be made right then. It is not a program that can survive in the face of uncertainty. We should not do that to people, especially our most vulnerable Kentuckians, to make them worried that we're going to run out of money for Medicaid. And so I think on the one hand, this idea of, yes, let's innovate, yes, let's sort of see what we can do better in the system, that's great. I think everyone agrees with that. I'm worried about this lockbox. I'm worried about what it's going to mean a few years from now. I'm worried about how it plays out if we're not willing to unlock it and give those benefits and resources to Kentuckians.
Yeah, I would say I want to start by at first principles and know who we're talking about here. We're not talking about the traditional population, the elderly or the infirm. We're talking about the expansion population. And since COVID, which is about 6 years, the cost of Medicaid in Kentucky has gone from $10 billion to over $20 billion. That is not sustainable. We cannot continue to do that. And while the federal government picks up the tab on a lot of that, we have to. Our numbers are skyrocketing as well from our state budget. So it's not something that's sustainable. So you have to do something to help it. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to manage it better. We've had an auditor that came out and said there were $800 million of misspending, and so we're trying to do a lot of things. We have a number of people that we pay providers for to provide services for people who don't live in Kentucky. They're on the rolls, they get the dollars, but they don't live in Kentucky. There's a lot of duplicates. So we're trying to say, let's get this under control. And I would say over the last year, even though the growth has been exponential in funding, in the cost, even over the last year, but the numbers of people on the program have not increased over the last year. So what we're trying to say to the executive branch is, get your hands on this, come back to Kentucky, come back home from wherever you are campaigning, and let's get this program under control. And we've put money away to if it's needed, but we don't think it'll be needed. If it's managed appropriately, it will be okay. Let me circle back to the beginning. We're not talking about the traditional program. If you're elderly, if you're infirm, you're not in this conversation. It's the expansion population only. I think that needs to be highlighted. And the cost has exploded from $10 billion to over $20 billion since COVID. What could we do with the money if we could put our hands around that? We want to do more. We could do once we take care of pensions and we take care of that, we'll have literally billions of dollars to do more infrastructure projects, to put even more money in schools, even though we're funding them more than we ever had. We will have more money for cancer research and all those types of things if we could get our hands around the two biggest problems we have, and that is pension costs and Medicaid costs.
And that's a good point to head to break here, but we have a lot more for you. We're going to talk about the hundreds of millions of dollars in investment that the city of Louisville got from this past legislative session, as well as JCPS. A lot could be changing and maybe some potential legal challenges we'll have to see. We're going to be coming right back up with that. But first, a word from our sponsor here.
Hi, I'm Sue, distracted driver.
Attorney Alex White. If you're injured, visit SueDistractedDriver.com.
All right, welcome back to our discussion. Big takeaways from the 2026 Kentucky legislative session. Of course, two of our state lawmakers with us today, Democrat Cassie Chambers Armstrong from the Senate and Republican Jason Nemes from the House. We appreciate both you guys taking the time. I want to dive into Louisville because, like him or not, this mayor seems to have been very successful over the last two budget cycles to deliver a lot of money for the city of Louisville. Representative Nemes, we'll start with you. I mean, what's the secret sauce here? And could you sort of list some of the things that Louisville got?
Certainly. This was a spectacular session for Louisville with respect to projects. Having the mayor there is important. He goes to our colleagues' counties. He goes to Todd County to see Petrie. He goes to Northern Kentucky to see then Petrie's the House Budget Chairman, and he also goes to various counties to go see legislators. And I think that's important because Louisville is their town too. It's our town, it's our home. But they think of Louisville as their town, and they want Louisville to succeed. And it is better when we have a mayor who is liked and respected in Frankfort. So that's good. The secret sauce is we have Julie Rocky Adams at the table. I mean, I can say pretty words or whatever. I can just tell the bottom line truth. Julie Rocky Adams she's the one who gets it done for Louisville. We do our part in the House as well, but she's the secret sauce. What we're talking about here is we have $90 million that are coming to infrastructure projects in downtown Louisville. We have LouMed under the I-64 in Belvedere, transferring the community care center, getting some more money there for homelessness, and there are several other things that can be used for. The Center for the Arts got a significant amount of money. We could go on and on. It's about $1 billion to Louisville, $707 million in road projects, and so it was a tremendously successful session for Louisville, just like it was 2 years ago.
Senator Armstrong, I mean, some of these incentives here, we saw in, I believe it was House Bill 757, there were some incentives included for Humana, sort of reconstruct that, rehabilitate that to make it a convention-style hotel. There was some in there for Valhalla. I know a lot of these projects, especially downtown, don't really fall in your district. Just walk me through sort of the impact and how you view it, given the constituents you represent.
Sure. So I think when we're talking about Louisville and its importance, Representative Nemes hit the nail on the head, which is Louisville is important for the entire state. It is the economic engine of the state, and it belongs to everyone. It belongs to everyone in Kentucky. Everyone in Kentucky is impacted by it. And so I'm really grateful for our local government officials, our Louisville delegation, everyone rowing together to hit that message.
Cross-party line.
Exactly. Bipartisan support to say day after day, Louisville is important for the future of our Commonwealth, and we should all be invested in how it goes. And so we saw a lot of great projects that impact all of the different neighborhoods, all the different parts of Louisville. That is a good thing. I'm going to talk about one in my district that I'm really excited about, the Kentucky Trails expansion at the Louisville Zoo, which is going to be so exciting. You're going to be able to shake hands with an otter. If you don't believe me, you can Google.
Right.
There's a Japanese zoo that does it. You can put your hand through and shake hands with an otter.
Shake it after Cassie does.
Yeah, sold.
That was one of my number one budget priorities. I'm really grateful that we had some money to assist with that project. But I think if you want to feel good about government, go and look at some of these projects and think about all of the different people, all the different families, all the different communities that they're going to touch and make a difference in.
There is a lot of bipartisan support in Frankfort, which I think does need to be stated because so much we see, not to call out the Capitol, right, in Congress, but it tends to be more partisan. At the end of the day, when you're representing your state, there is something that just goes with having a budget session, having to balance your budgets and things of that nature. I do want to reference, though, one of the more controversial topics along party lines, and that is public education, specifically our largest school districts. I'm going to focus on Louisville. Obviously, that's where we are. JCPS was yet another time very much a hot topic, and a lot of times we've seen bills maybe not cross the finish line. This was not the case. Senate Bill 1, Senate Bill 4 were two big ones that could change the entire way JCPS operates. Senator Armstrong, I want to start with you. I mean, we knew this was a priority specifically for Republicans. I mean, what are we looking at here as far as impact? And I wanted to kind of get your reaction to it / path forward.
I'm particularly concerned about the provisions that change the districts. And so we'll be going from 7 school board members to 5 school board members. Those districts were drawn by Frankfort. I actually hadn't even seen the districts prior to the time we voted on them. I know a lot of people in the community hadn't seen them either. And then my understanding is JCPS will be able to draw its own districts in the future. But right. I'm worried that there's a lot of sort of change, upheaval, things that don't promote stability. And I think that you would find bipartisan consensus on the idea that we need to be providing stability to JCPS. We need to be supporting our public education system, and we don't need to be passing legislation that works against each other. And so what I'm worried about is you see all of these bills making all of these changes, and I don't know that people are sitting down and thinking thoughtfully about how do we in a long-term way support stability and governance in this district. I also believe that when the people elect representatives to speak for them, whether it's school board or anything else, you only change that with a great amount of thought, care, deliberation, and community input. I'm not sure we saw that this session.
And Representative Nemes, I mean, you were instrumental, even though this was a Senate bill, and specifically the language and the effort to bring these board members, these districts down to 5, recreate them. And the emergency clause is key, because for those who don't know, that means that this takes effect and every board's up for grabs in November. You've called the board at its current form a clown show because of the budget deficit.
I don't know a better word for it.
Why did this need to happen right away? Why not just go for those who were up for re-election and then kind of go from there?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, the JCPS board effectively asked for this when they said that you can't treat Louisville differently. Well, 7 was only for Louisville. Every other school board in the entire state has 5. And so they don't get to pick and choose the ways that Frankfurt treats them the same and treats them differently. So when they filed that lawsuit, they were effectively saying, hey, we think we should be treated like everybody else. So we went to 5. That language was my language. I'm very proud of it. I said from before the session began that this board would not survive sine die, and I'm happy that they didn't. Not only about the lawsuit that I was talking about, but let's talk about the substance of the question. We are $188 million in the hole. That's because of this board. Our reading levels, 1/3 of our African Americans read on grade level, or 1/5, 1/3 of our whole staff, our whole student body reads on grade level. I won't even tell you the math and science scores because we'll cry about them. They're so low. And all the while, we had about 12 years ago, Adam Edlin, a Democrat auditor, came into Louisville, looked at JCPS, and they said one of the major problems you have is that central office is overbloated, has too many employees. We need to get more people to the classroom. So what did this board do? They went out and they hired 255 more employees for central office. Just so you know what that is, that's 5 schools worth of teachers. I said clown show before. I don't know a better description. They're absolutely incompetent. They want to blame the former superintendent. We don't elect superintendents. We elect board members. It is on the backs of those board members that we are so financially incompetent, and our district is run so poorly that something has to be done. And so what I'm really excited about, the biggest win of the session other than the budget, is that we are now going to have a new board. And again, I think it was legally required, but also we are going to have a board member elected all over the state. By the way, the South End didn't have a single representative. Nobody lived in the South End. They would now get one. And so they should be very happy about that. But what this means is we should be talking, and I invite you, and I hope your new station does this, we should be talking about JCPS and education the entire summer and fall. We have an opportunity now to improve JCPS that we've not had in a long time, and I've told you some of the terrible numbers. There's a lot of good things happen in JCPS as well, but we need many more. 1 in 6.5 kids in Kentucky are in JCPS. It's the most important thing in government. There's really not a close second, and it is woefully inadequate.
3 minutes left. I want to touch on this quickly. You guys are both lawyers, and my first sense with this is like, okay, this is at least Senate Bill 1, which has to do with JCPS, superintendent, who has more control over day-to-day operations. That's been in lawsuits in the past. But Senate Bill 4 is kind of the question because that's the school board one. That's new. I know they met in executive session, I believe, yesterday, the school board did, to sort of talk about a path forward.
Yeah, they don't have a lawsuit.
Do you guys see this, and Senator Armstrong, we'll start with you, do you see this going kind of that route? What's your sense that the board will sue and maybe this all gets held up?
I haven't had any conversations. I don't have any insight. My main concern is for the voters and for the people who are going to participate in this system. Since it is now law, I hope that we can all come together to at least make sure people understand the new districts, the elections, and what is happening. But again, it concerns me that we are making these changes about disliking the people that were in those seats as opposed to thinking about the structural stability of the system. If you don't like the people representing you in office, vote for new people. You don't sort of upheave the whole system and create more chaos.
It's not about dislike. I don't even know most of them. They are woefully incompetent. The numbers are.
Do you see a lawsuit coming? What
and
James Craig have.
What would they sue over? They sued before saying you can't treat us differently.
Well, that's not mine to answer.
Would they sue and say, oh, wow, you treated us the same, now you're not allowed to do that? I don't know what their lawsuit would be.
Do you think they will?
They can if they want to, but there's no claim there because the Supreme Court just ruled for them when they said you can't treat us differently. I would say one thing. There is one way that we treat JCPS differently than any other district, and I fought to keep this one, by the way, and that is that we have a 0.75 tax, occupational tax, and no other place does. 0.5 is the cap. I fought to keep that, but it's the only place that we treat JCPS differently. And the reason I fought to keep it is because it's the difference between $72 million. So I would strongly advise JCPS not to bring that lawsuit, because if they do that, I'm sure there'll be a second one brought as well, and neither one of those are good. We need to have it out, battle over JCPS this fall in these 5 districts. And I'm excited about that for the people of Jefferson County. They'll elect whoever they elect, but I want the citizens, all the news organizations, everybody needs to talk about JCPS all summer and all fall. It is the worst thing going in Kentucky government, and it needs to be better.
A lot to talk about into the summer. Real quick, we have less than a minute left. I want to get 20 seconds from each of you guys. What are you looking forward in the interim into next year? Maybe something that didn't reach the finish line, Senator Armstrong, that you're really keyed in on?
I think I could probably find some support from Representative Nemes on this. I'm looking forward to, I've been looking at ideas of how we could better serve victims of domestic violence in our court system. Kentucky still scores really high in terms of our domestic violence outcomes. There are things we could do to support survivors more. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. You going to have it with me, Representative Nemes?
No doubt about that. I would say, and Cassie supported this and voted for it. It's the Julie Rocky Adams' bill, Senate Bill 122, was written by Zero v. Zero Violence, and that protects domestic violence, children and women and men in domestic violence situations. That's good. Housing didn't make it past. Susan Witten did an extraordinary job getting it passed in the House. It's a very complex thing. I passed medical marijuana. It took me 5 years. I don't think this will take 5 years, but she did a great job the first year, and I look forward to her passing it through the Senate next time as well as the House next session.
All right. More to watch, of course, going into the interim session. Thank you both so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.